Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another tutorial. So in this one we're going to look at templating with PHP. So how to create templates kind of like what Laravel has with Blade. So we're going to create something very similar to this one, but a lightweight version of this. Just so you can understand how these things work, and maybe you can create your own because there's power in creating your own. You can modify it to whatever you want. All right, so for example here with PHP, you would need to echo this kind of statement, but with Laravel's Blade, you only type something like this, and then it will automatically edit this into what is readable. So let's look at a couple of examples and create our own version so that you can understand what I am talking about here. So we're going to use a lot of these terminology that Blade already uses to make our lives easier. That way, after you can expand it to whatever you want. All right, so just make sure that PHP is installed on your system and a server of some kind. So you can do that by downloading XAMPP and starting these two services, Apache and MySQL. Just in case you are using a database, you will need that MySQL as well. All right, guys, so let's begin and start our server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a working folder. So I created a folder in my drive, so you can do this anywhere, possibly where you have write and read permissions. So I just created a folder. So I'm going to drag and drop this folder here. It's called Templating. You can name it whatever you want. Into my text editor, I'm using Sublime Text, as always. So in this folder, Templating, I'm going to start a server in there. So I'm just going to type command line, open a command window and navigate to that particular folder, and then type php-s. Now PHP must be installed in your computer, which will be done if you install XAMPP. And then let's name our server localhost. Let's give it a port number with a full colon there. I'm going to give it a port number of 70. It doesn't really matter. Just don't make it 80 because it will clash with the original port number, but it can be anything else. 700, 7000, doesn't matter. All right, so let's press enter in this situation. Okay, so our server has been started at this location. So I'm just going to copy that and minimize this because you can close this. If you close that, then you're closing your server. And let's go back to our browser and paste that and press enter. So we should see something like not found. Then you know your server is running. Okay, guys, so now let's create some files. So in this folder, I'm going to create a new file in there. This is going to be our index page, which will serve as kind of a router, a routing system. So this one is index.php. Let's save that. Let's create a few folders. I'm going to right click and create a new folder. This one will contain our view files. So of course I'm going to name it views. And then what else do we need? We need the views. We need the I don't know, app. Let's see. So I'm just gonna mimic what usually happens. So inside the app here, I won't do all that folder too much in there. I'm just gonna create a new file, and this will be our template class. So nothing too complex here. Let's just name it template with a capital T.php and press enter. All right, so great. So far, so good. Now, all I need to do in my index page is include that class file. So let me actually create the class. Just type class there, and you can comment template class. Put some detail there. Okay, so this class does not extend any other class. This is This is all we need. We don't need a constructor either. So we're going to need a few functions in here. So the first function will be public because we are accessing it from the outside. And this function will be code render. All right, something like this. Okay, great. Let's save this for now. Now let's look at the views because that's what's important. So what we're trying to do here is this. I'm going to create a new file. And what I want, this is like going to be the home page, right? So I'm going to name it home.tpl.php. Now, having a .php extension is important unless these files are not in the, yeah, maybe not so important. Let's just name it .tpl like that, short for template. Actually, yeah, actually that's fine. It doesn't matter. You could put the .php extension so that if you want to be adding PHP there, but I think that's better so that it's just plain text. So in our home page like this, the only thing we're going to do in here is extend a template. So normally when you have like a blog, let's say you have a blog of some kind, right? It normally has a header, a footer, and the content section, right? So the header and footer normally don't change throughout the site. So you want to keep those the same, and usually the overall look remains the same. So we need a page called layout for different page layouts that you want to use, and that's what will determine the overall look of the page. So let's create a new folder in views here. We're going to call this one layouts, right? Very creative. Okay, so layouts, and sometimes you may want some partial templates in here. So let's create another new folder called partials, like that. Okay, things like widgets and all that, those are partial things that you put on your page. And let's see here. So inside layout here, let's create a new file. This is the actual layout page. So this one is going to be, let's just call it main.tpl. You can name this whatever you want. The file names don't really matter. Okay, so inside partials, maybe let's create a footer or something like that. So let me save this, say footer.tpl. Maybe a header as well. So I'm going to do that. Right click and new file. Let's do just a second here. Okay, so let's do a header. Let me save this. Header.tpl. There we go. Okay, so in our header file, I want us to have, because this is just going to be HTML pretty much, right? You can actually save these files as HTML. I think maybe that will be more, that will be much better, maybe. Let me try that. Let's rename those to HTML so that, oh, actually, let me leave that. What I can do is go down here to the bottom right, and I can select that I'm using HTML in here. That way it recognizes it as HTML. Okay, so let me add a div here, or let's call it header. Something like this. Okay, so this is our header, and I want to put some menu items here. So href like that. So that's for the home page. So I'm going to say home and close that. And then I'm going to do blog, maybe like that. Okay. All right. So all these are just index.php. Okay. And then this one, we can have something like page is equal to blog, something like that, so that it goes to another page when we select it. Okay, 2 pages should be good enough. I'll put a dot there to separate these two. Okay, so that's for the header. Let's look at the footer here. Let's add footer. Now I want this recognized as HTML as well, so I'm going to select HTML here. So footer, like this. So here we just say copyright something. Copyright. And then let's just add a... we're going to add something like... what do we do here? Let's see if this is going to work. I'm going to add some date like that. This is for PHP, right? I'm just testing to see if this will work when the time comes. This is how you add a year or something. Okay, so with that, and then we say all rights reserved, just so we have something in the footer like that. Okay, so we have our header and footer. Great. Okay, so now in the main layout template here, maybe let me name it as main layout. That way, let's do that. That way you don't get confused what the main is. Okay, so here is where we're going to put the actual HTML. So I want suggestions here for HTML, so I'll select HTML again. So let's do that. Now there's a page title. Now this is where the templating comes in. So instead of doing this with PHP like title, echo, something like that, and then we will put a function here to escape this, or what we normally do, we leave it as, we don't put any PHP code in here. Instead, we just put brackets like that, and then we'll do the title like that. Okay, so pretty much this is going to be replaced with the actual title. And then inside the body here, I want to include a header. Okay, so I just do at and then say include, and then in the brackets I can just say header, because there's a file here called header.tpl, but it's inside the partials folder. So in order to support folders, we will use things like, just like what Laravel does, we'll say partials.header, something like that. And then I can duplicate this and include the footer over here like that. Okay, so just with that, we have our content here, but then we need this main area here. So I'm just going to do main like that, and this is where we'll add some content. Now here we have to tell this template. Now think about it, this is not the page we're going to be loading. This is like the parent to all pages. So all pages will inherit from this one. So this part will include the header, but at this point we want it to surrender control to the current page, because this is like the overall page, but each page will be unique except for this one. So this one is supposed to yield to the other pages. So this is what we're going to use. That's the keyword we're going to use, and say yield to a section called content. So that way each page can put its own content here. The header will remain the same, the footer remain the same, but each page will put its own unique content in the middle here. Now if, for example, I have like a sidebar, I can also do that. I don't know what you would say, maybe call it a section like that, I don't know. And then you can also yield to the sidebar if there is such a thing, right? So we're going to do like sidebar here. So what this is really saying is that if the page we've loaded has a sidebar, just add it here. If the page we've loaded has main content, you will put the content in here. Okay, so let's save this. This is our main template. All right, so now let's go to our actual pages. Now there's this home page here, so we have to design the home page. So first of all, we have to tell the home page to inherit from our main layout over here. It's going to inherit this. So if I come back here to home, I'm going to say add. So we need, let's use the word extends to tell us what it's extending. This one is extending the main layout. Now main layout is inside layouts dot and then main layout. Now remember, we don't put the .tpl at the end, the file extension, we don't do that. Okay, now keep in mind that you can put this extends main layout at any point on the page, it doesn't matter. And then here I'm going to, this is the home page, so I'm going to add a section. And this one will be the content section, like that. And then I'll say end section over here. Okay. Then I can duplicate this and add as many sections as I want. The order of any of these items doesn't really matter. You can start with this part, that part. Even this extends can come to the very bottom of the page. It shouldn't matter. So this section will be called content. This one will be called the sidebar. So I'm going to do sidebar. Something like this, right? Let's go back to main layout here for a sec. Let's make sure that this does look like a sidebar of some kind. Let me just put a div over here and put these two guys inside a div so that they are side by side. And then I'm gonna do style display flex. That way they are side by side. And then let's put some styles here and say flex 1. Now I want this one maybe 3 times larger than this one, so I'm going to put 3 here. And then I want some other properties here, for example some padding. So there's a bit of padding, 10 pixels. And then just so we can see these items, I'm going to put a little margin of 1 or 2 pixels. And then I'm going to put a border, which is going to be solid, thin, and then let's put a nice black, like 666, something like that. Mark of the beast, right? Okay, so there we go. So we have this nice looking page over here. Now we could just load this page and see how it looks. Let's see. This one is in the views, templating views, layouts, and then main layout.tpl. Will that work? I don't know. Let's try that. So this one is going to be inside views / layouts. Let's see what's in there. Requested resource not found. Views, layouts, and then main dash, let's do that, main dash layout dot tpl. Oh, it just downloaded it. Wow, okay, that's because it's neither a PHP page nor HTML. Okay, so let me just rename it for a second here. Let's do that. Let's put that HTML, because really we don't even, we'll never have any PHP in here. So you can save these as HTML if you, especially if you want to preview them. Let me go here, HTML. Okay, so there we go. That's much better. At least we can see some. So there's a box here and there's yield sidebar over here. Pretty good. Pretty much what I kind of wanted. Let me just narrow this guy up. I'm gonna say max width to 800 pixels, maybe 1000 pixels, and then margin left auto, and let me copy this, duplicate that to margin right as well. All right, so let's save that and let me refresh. Wait, what is going on? Max width, let's try 800. Okay, let's see what we are doing. Okay, so it's much smaller. That's what I needed. Anyway, you get the idea. We can use actual HTML in a bit, but that's that. All right, so let me rename this back to TPL just to keep the convention going here. TPL.tpl at the end there. So like I said, it's up to you. You can rename them as HTML files. That's fine. Okay, so with that layout and this, let's go to the home and actually add some content so that we can see it. So inside the main content, I just want us to do some kind of a loop, maybe for some items. So here we're going to use the for each loop like that. Okay, so maybe we can say something like item as item. Okay, and then here we'll say end for each. So this is how we're going to be adding loops in there. And then inside here, I could put just some div. Maybe this is a list. So list item, and then let's echo out the item itself. So here I will do this kind of thing to echo the item. Okay, and then close that list item and then duplicate it. Oh no, actually this is a loop, so it doesn't matter. And then here I will put the unordered list title like that, and then close unordered list. Okay, so here imagine these are kind of like posts. In fact, maybe let me rename that to post. This one is posts as post, and then that's the post, maybe post title or something. But for now, we're just going to have like some text in there just to see that it's actually working. And this one, I will say something like post title, something like so, and then post there. Great. That way we can differentiate from the sidebar. So let me copy this and put it in the sidebar thing here so that we know as well what's going on here. Now instead of posts here, maybe it's like maybe images or something. What are we going to put here? Maybe it's more posts as well. Let's say images, like so. Image source or something like that. Okay, it doesn't matter. I just want different content here and different content here so we can see when they are different. Okay, so this is the thing. This is how we are supposed to be able to design our website in this way. So we have like a main layout, and then for each page we have different content. So also, for example, let me go back to main layout here, where there's a header. On the home page, usually we can include something like what do you call that? Let me just duplicate this. Here we can yield, because this is content that may not always be there. You only include content in here that will always be on every page. and then you yield to content that will be different or that may or may not exist. So here we're going to yield to a what do you call that thing, the slider, something like that. Yeah, so a slider. So on the home page we can have a slider section. This is just going to give us a section for to put that, what do you call that, let's slide the main image. So instead of an actual image, since we're just doing experiments here, I'm just gonna say hide 200 pixels and then just add a background color, just so we can see it. Background color of maybe blue, and that's it. Instead of a sidebar, this is the slider. All right, so we've designed our home page, but this is not the only page. We're going to have the blog page as well. So on that one, we create a new page inside views and paste this content. So let me save that, and this one is the blog.tbl. Okay, so on blog, we'll also inherit from main layout, and we will have posts as well, but we do not have a slider on that particular page. Okay, maybe we don't have anything in the sidebar as well, just so we see. Maybe we do have sidebar content here, but not on the home page, right? So home page, let's remove sidebar. Okay. All right, that way we have one different view here on the home page and a different view on the blog, while they're both inheriting from the main layout. Okay, so with that, let's now actually create the templating engine to interpret that data that we've created. So first of all, I just want to render the home, maybe this main template also. Okay, so let's go here. Now there's a render function here. Now the render function will take two params, the name of the template and then some data in form of an array that you want to render with. Because when we run the render function in main layout, for example, there's variables like title, and maybe let's add a page header as well here. Maybe an h2 title here. This one may be the page name, something like that. Okay. Okay, so that at least we have a title, we know what page we're on. So all these variables will be inside data. So let's do that. Let me come back here. Where is that template? So that's the data we're gonna have here. Now immediately, once we're in here, we just need to extract that data. That way, whatever variables were inside that data will become actual variables like name, page, etc., etc., instead of being inside an array like that. So we extract them to be outside. Okay, and then with that, I just want to generate a cache file. Now, the cache file is the file that we're going to generate to combine all of this data together. Then we can run it. So in order to create that file, we're going to call it the parsed file, or just parsed like this. Now, since this is a class, we can use this keyword like that to reference this particular class. And then we're going to say this. Now we're going to create another function called, what are we doing? We're going to do three things. We're going to render, we're going to parse, and we're going to compile. So I want to compile that. So let's put the template file itself. So this one is just the template name, right? So what I'm going to do is just say template file so that we load the actual file. Because remember, we are sending this. Let me get back to index here so I can explain a little bit. In here, we're going to do something like tmp is equal to new template. And that is that class. But we need to include that class here. So let's require it. And this one is inside the app folder and then template.php. All right. So once we require it, we can create a new instance of it, and then we can say temp render. Something like that. And that's it. This is all we'll do in the home page, except we're going to check for the page as well. So I'm going to say page is equal to, we'll look inside the get variable for the page keyword. If it exists, that's our page. Otherwise, let's set it to the home page if none of that exists. Okay, so home is the template we are looking for. So here when we say render, that is what we're going to put here. Okay, we're rendering the page that's currently there. Okay, and then some data that we want to give it. So this is going to be an array. We're just going to do this to create an array. And of course, this should include the items we want to replace here, like the title, the page, etc., etc. For now, these are the only two that we really need. So title and page. So I'm going to go back here and just say title. Now this is going to be the page title. I think that is pretty much the same data as page, right? Just like page and page. Same thing, you know, because if it says home, that's home. However, the page name, maybe we can do something like UC first, so it's capitalized. Something like that. Now we can add as much data as you want. For example, we need items when we are looping. Not items, but posts. So let's add that as well. We're going to need posts like that. These are really just post titles, and they're inside an array as well. So let's do this. Say my first blog, something like that. That's one title, another title. My second blog, and my third blog. How very creative. Okay, so that's another item we've added to this. Now we can add more items here. So you have to check to see on the home page, for example, if you're on the home page, what do we need? It's posts, right? And that's really it, actually. There's a slider here, and then on blog, what do we need? Posts again, and then maybe images as well. So you have to look at that. That's when you create your what do you call this? Your routing system, which will contain the data. Let's say you'll be reading from the database. If page is equal to this, then you have different data, and so on and so forth. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to add all that data at once. This is image, and then these, instead of blog, these image, like that, so that we don't get errors that those variables do not exist. Okay, good. So that's the entry function inside our template thingy. All right. So now the first thing we need to do is just parse our file. So inside this render function, we just want to see how that would look like. So first of all, the template name is just going to come something like home. So we need to concatenate the word TPL with a dot there as well. Don't forget that at the end. But this is template itself. So let me put that here. So we're trying to recreate the path to the file so that the compiler can find it. So it's inside this is the one here, home, right? So it's inside the views. So here I'm going to say views slash and then concatenate template. However, sometimes the template is inside a subfolder, and we do that by putting a dot like we've done here, partials dot header. So we're going to replace the dot with a slash to make it a folder name. So all we need to do is come back here and let's say string replace, like so. And then what we are searching for is just a dot and replacing it with a, is it a forward slash? I don't know. Inside the word template, like that. Okay, so for now, all I want is to see if we have that correct. So let me just echo template file. That's it. So let's try and run this without any of that stuff. Okay, so uncaught error, class template not found. Okay. So how come it's not found? Require. So if that was added, then template should exist. Oh, sorry. This one has an S there. Sorry about that. Okay, so that should disappear with that. Okay, so look at that. That file exists. So since that file exists, we can either say if file does not exist and so on. You can put those if statements and say if file exists, template file, then we go ahead. Otherwise, oops, what did I just do? Else, you can just echo something like could not find file and then concatenate the template file. Okay, so that's where we are now. Let me remove this. So now if the file does exist, this is when we compile it. So I want to parse this file. This is where the bulk of the work is going to be. And then I just want to echo the parsed file. I'm just going to say echo parsed. Actually, this one is going to be the cache file. So let's call it that. We compile and cached file. Okay, so like I said, we're going to make a edit. We're going to replace all of this stuff with actual stuff, and that will be called the cached file. So that file will be saved on disk, and then we can reload it whenever we want, unless something changes within the original template file, and then we re-render it again. So that's what we're going to be doing. So that cached version here will be in the, will run this. So let's create that function as well. So this one is not really a public function, so let's protect it because we're going to be only getting it from within this class. So protected function compile. Okay. So what are we compiling here? We're compiling this template file. So I'm going to put it here. Okay. Now we need to tell it where to save this file once we are done compiling. Actually, no, because we are grabbing that. What are we doing here? No. We need to tell it where to save that file as a cached file. So let me just do this. Cached. So let's do that instead. So what I'm going to do is copy this. This is our template file. I'm going to duplicate this and put cached there instead. Now this one, we're going to create a folder called cache. So let's do that. folder is equal to cache, like that. Let's put that slash there. Now you can just create the folder in advance. I think maybe that's much better instead of having PHP do that. So let me just right click here and say new folder. Let's call it cache. That's where we'll save all the rendered files. Okay. So with that folder, actually, if we're just creating that folder there, we don't need this. Let me just write it right there like so. So cache, and then what I want is to grab the template file. Okay. And then here in between, I want to save this as a PHP file so that it runs as PHP. But instead of putting template file here, I'm going to use, instead of all of this, right? But I could use all of that, no problem. What I can do is do MD5, something like that, so that I create like a hash of all that text. And then that becomes the file name. So cache, and then the file name that's generated from the hashing this, and then .php at the end. So then we supply this cached file here so that the compile function knows it knows where to save that file to. Okay. All right. Then maybe we don't need to equal it to something like that. I don't know. Let's see what we can do. So let me come back here to compile. So this is template file and a cached file. So I'm going to grab that to copy the signature and put those things here. Okay. Now from this, I want to return, let me create another function called parse. So this is parsed. Let me return this. So don't mind this zigzag pattern here, but it will make sense in a bit. Parse. Then template file. Alrighty then. So let me come back here. Another protected function called parse. Now what parse will do is exactly what we want here. Now the reason I'm putting all these functions, like there's a function here where I'm not doing all of this in the same function, right? This render function should just do the rendering so that it's much simpler. So I decided to move the other functionality to another function like compile. Now what I want compile to do is to check if there's already a cache version of this file. If it's there, it returns the cached version instead of us redoing the calculation again. And then if there isn't a cached version, then it should parse that here. So that's why this function is separate as well. So we want to parse that file, which is replacing the content of the file with PHP code instead. So let's do this here. Now with that in mind, let's we're going to refine this a little bit. Let me return. So here we're going to parse, let's just call it content instead. So this template, so instead of this template file, let's just grab the content of the file. So I'm going to say content is equal to file get contents. This is how you get contents from a file. It's text. Okay, so I grab the content from that file and then I supply it to be parsed, and then this is the parsed version that comes back here. So that content now I want to parse it. So now with all this, let me just do this return content. So with all this, if I echo that, it should just show me what's inside the template file. So let me refresh. And as you can see, this is very recognizable. This is the stuff that we added. It doesn't look like it, but if I view the page source, you will see that it's exactly the same content as you see here. Okay, so it returns exactly. Now what I want to do is replace these things in here by parsing them. So first of all, let's look at how we can replace, let's say this here, okay, with something else, so that we include the file, this one here. So let me come back here for a sec. Let's replace that with actually we'll be looking at the page source quite a bit, so I'll leave it there. Okay, so time to parse. So let's go down here and start parsing. So I'm going to say, now I will come here and use some regular expressions. So with the home TPL, let me just press Ctrl F to search. This has just changed the text in there. Okay, there we go. So I'm using Sublime Text, but you can use an online tool like regex 101, like this.com. This is like a regular expression tester to help you design regular expressions depending on your text. So like in here, I could copy all of my text here and see what regular expressions will work to select my text. And it will explain what it's doing over here. So, for example, I want to find the text extends. So I'm going to do a slash at like that. Now this slash here is to escape this character here so that it's treated not as a special character, right? And then it explains what it's doing. So now this selects all of these, the extends, the section, but I just want this maybe extends. Okay, so let me do this extends like that, so you can see it's selecting this thing, and this is how many matches we found. One match. And then I want to grab whatever is in here. So extends will have a slash bracket like that, and then a slash quote like that. Okay, and then there will be some text in here. Now I need to be able to grab that text, so I'm going to put a bracket, open and close bracket, to create another group, and then select any character in there with a plus to say be as greedy as possible. Just select as many characters as you want, and then here the end of that should be a closing bracket. So I'm going to put a slash to escape the closing bracket like that. Okay, so this is the pattern we're going to use to search for something like this, extends. Now even if I change the text in here, it doesn't matter, it will find that result. As you can see, there's one match and there's one group. So if you look here where it says the match, there's one match, you see that it matches the entire text that we selected, right? But I want to be able to select just the inside text here, okay? And it has done that for me right over here, as you can see. Okay, now it selected the quote as well. I need to remove that from the group. So how I do that? I can do this, yeah, and then I do that as well. Do I need to do that? Oh yeah, that removes the selection. Okay, so that's fine. So that's the pattern here, and I can see here the text is clean in there because I want a clean result there. So let me copy this. So all the extends are going to be replaced. So let me go back to the template thingy, and let's do a preg content is equal to, let's do a preg replace. That's how you replace with a regular expression. So let's put those brackets to protect our pattern and then paste our pattern in there. Okay, so what are we replacing this with? So let me put single quotes here because I'm going to put PHP code. I want you to replace it with PHP code. So we're going to do PHP like that. And then I want you to replace it with the text this to signify the class that we are in. And then because this is extends, something like that. And then we're going to say extends is equal to. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding PHP code that I will replace. And then I'll put double quotes there and say extends is equal to. Now, when you, let me put subject as content here before I forget, semicolon there. Now, when you do a preg replace here, there is a way to grab the matches that were found. Now, as you can see, there's a match here, this one, number 1, but then there's a group as well, number 1 here. So I want to grab content from that group, which is this one here, this text here. So I can do that using the $ and 1. So $ and 1 like that. Now, if I do $0, then I'll get the first item in the list, but I want the second item. So that will be like a variable. Whatever we captured in these brackets, right? The group is going to be in that $1. So let's just do that one thing and see how we've replaced that. Now, if I go back to my page, as you can see, this is what we have originally. So if I now refresh, I should see some PHP code instead. Oh, will I? Let's see. Okay, so there we go. So it's been replaced with some PHP code, which is this extends is equal to layouts.main.layout, right? So I'm putting some PHP code so that once we run this, it's going to save the layout we're in inside this variable called extends. Now it's part of the class, so let's add that there. So on top of the template here, I'm going to say protected, because we're just running this inside here. This one is going to be extends is equal to an empty string like that. Okay, great. Now, once we go to the render file here, I also want to clear that to make sure that with every render that we run, this word extends should be cleared. That way we are not extending is equal to emptiness like that. Okay, so don't worry if this is not making any sense, it will soon. So this is going to store whatever template we are currently extending. Okay, so for example, let's say we're in this home page, right? And we are parsing this. So this one extends only one item at a time, one template, one other layout. So we will still need to parse these sections. Now, even though there are 10 sections in here, we're still just extending this one until we load another page, and then this extends variable is going to change to reflect that page that we've loaded. Okay, so now let's do the sections. What do we do with sections here? Now, what I want to do is for every section, I want to be able to grab the information from the section and store it in a separate item in an array. So I want to save these inside an array, this one and this one separately. So I need a way that will allow me to do that. Now, there's something in PHP that we call it's the output buffer. So let me explain how that works, because this is a very important concept to understand. So in PHP, what happens is when you make a request, what PHP would do is it will start processing your page line by line like this, right? Now, every time you write the word echo in your code, it's going to compile that resulting text from the echo and then put it inside an output buffer. So an output buffer is just a piece of memory here that PHP will store your page before it sends it to the actual user. So there is an intermediary step here called output buffering. So every time you see an echo, it will write that line in the buffer until the buffer is full. And once the buffer is full, then it's going to flash that buffer onto the browser so that the user can actually see it down here. So now, there are some functions you can use to store things inside the buffer, although it does that automatically, but you can store those things. Whatever you echo is going to be stored automatically in the buffer. But then there's a function you can use to collect that information from the buffer and then dump or clean the buffer again before the information goes to the browser. Okay, so you can think of this like a little memory that you can store things and then save them. But the goodness with storing things, you may be asking, why don't we just store this inside like a variable? The thing is, the information stored in a buffer is rendered as PHP. The PHP has already run. There's no PHP in this buffer. It's just HTML. So that's exactly what we need. The data inside the buffer has already been evaluated by PHP, which is very important. Okay. So for example, if I send this file that I created into the buffer, this one, it will no longer have this code here. This will not be part of it because all this is just PHP. It will not show up in the buffer. So the things that show up in the buffer are what will show up on the page. So what we will do, so let me just give you an example here. Let's go to this page here, and I'm just going to say echo, we are here, all right? And then I'm going to say die over here. So if I go back to my page and refresh, you'll see we are here, right? But let's play with the buffer a little bit. So I'm going to say ob start. So this is how you start output buffering in case it wasn't on already. And then here what I want to do is clean the buffer. So I'm going to say ob clean. So what that will do is empty the buffer right there. So let's see what happens when I do this. You see that I don't get that echo anymore. I don't get the text that is in here. Even though I've echoed that text, it's no longer there because I've deleted everything from the buffer at this point. Now there's a way to not just delete but to get that content by using this function ob get clean, and this is the content over here, right? So instead of just deleting it, I'm putting it in there. Now if I refresh the page again, I'm not going to see anything either. Refresh. Okay, so nothing yet until I echo this content again down here, which will actually start the buffering again and then put that content back. So let's see. And as you can see, there it is. So this is the way we're going to be doing things. We're going to be sending our templates into the buffer and then let PHP be evaluated, because we don't want to run the execute function to execute PHP, because that's not good. So instead, we're going to do it this way, the normal way that PHP does it, through the output buffer, and then collect that information as a section and then put it inside a memory location in waiting for the main template, and then we can put those things back. So instead of just talking about it, let's do it. So here I'm going to duplicate this and create another thing called sections. Now this one is going to be an array which will contain all the sections that we have evaluated. Okay, so sections as a plural. Okay, so now what we're going to be replacing that data with, let me remove this, is this stuff right here. So I'm just going to cut this, save. So let me get back to my page over there. Let me go to the page source. It's much easier to see what's going on. So just like we have this, I want to edit this and put output buffer start. Okay, so output buffer start, and then put the section name. Yeah, let's do that. Let me come back here. So this sections will be that data. Okay, so let's go down here and let me duplicate this. Now let's come back to our regex here and design a new regex. So just like we did with the other stuff, I'm gonna create one for section, and then that, and then that, and then a group, and then the quote, and then the closing. Now in there I will select everything plus, like that. So as you can see, it has selected the sections as I needed it to be, and there are several groups here, 2 matches, this match and that match, and then a group there as well, and another group slider. So that's working as we need. So I'm going to copy that, and let's come back to our templating here, and let me replace this part right there. Boom. Now this one we're going to replace with OB start. So I'm going to come here. My mouse is fighting with me here. So OB start, so that we start the output buffer, and semicolon, like that. So once we start the output buffer, and then we're going to say this sections, and I want to save that section name. So here I'm going to say, let's see. No, actually we would do this in the end. Here we just OB start, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do like 1 is equal to OB get clean, like that, semicolon. Okay, so let me duplicate that. Some of this code is supposed to go at the end, so let me remove this part here. At the beginning we just want output buffering started. Okay, great. But then actually we need to know the section name. So how do we do that? I think we're gonna just save it inside this one. Let's call it, maybe, what can we call it? Section, this section. Let's see here. I want the name here. That's what I want. The problem is this one. Okay, so let's do this. Let me just say name here, like so, is equal to, and then let's do that. Okay, so the name is going to be whatever value that we got from here. Let's put quotes around it, like that, because it's going to be text. And then finally we can use the same name in here later. So for example, this name is going to be the name of the section. Let's say the section is named content, right? So name is going to be equal to content, and then this section's content is going to be equal to whatever the output buffer result is going to be. But this is only going to be done at the end of the section. So here we're just looking for the word end section. So I'm going to remove all of this here and just search for end section, like that. Okay guys, so let's try and see how that solves the another problem. So let's look at section and end section here. So I'm going to refresh, let's see what we get this time. And there we go. So we get some PHP code instead. This one, OB start, right? And then name is equal to content, right? And then at the end here, we say OB. Oh, we don't need the OB start here. We just say this section's name, which is this one, content, is going to be the result of the cleaning of the buffer. So what we've essentially done is we've run this, we're going to run this file as one, but whenever we, first of all, we're going to start the output buffer and then render this and then save that thing in here and then repeat the process. We rename it to something else and then save it in that section. Let me just remove this OB start at the end. We don't need that. Let's go over here. Like so. Yay. Let's refresh again. Let's see what we got. And boom, that's what it is. So this is all I need. So as a result, these things are going to be rendered into the sections part of the page. So let's try and see the result of that. So now that we've done just the sections themselves, that's good enough for me to start testing. So what I'm going to do here is when we return the cached file here, I want to run that content. Now, this is going to be the temp file. Oh, wait. Wait a second. What I'm trying to do here is save this file instead of just returning the data. So let's save that file. So I'm trying to figure out which function we should use for that. I think it should be this one inside compile. So once we get this content from the compile, let's save it in the let's see, file put contents. Yes, that's how you save. So the file name is going to be the cached file, and then the data is the content that we just generated. So instead of sending it to the browser, we're just going to save it as a file. Okay, so inside cache here, this is empty. So let's try and see if this will work. I'm going to refresh here. We should still get this, but this time at least a file has been saved. And as you can see, this is the file. But unfortunately, the data that is saved is the old stuff. So that's not cool. Let's see. Cached file. Oh, wait. Yes, that's cached file. And then the content is this file get contents. Oh, sorry about that. I'm supposed to put this one here. So instead of returning past there, we're supposed to save it here. Now, instead of the return, let's remove that. Okay, great. So let me come back here and refresh. Now we should see emptiness now this time. Yeah, that's great. So now that the page is empty, all that code has been saved in here instead. So now you can see it much better. This is the cache file now. So this is the code that we have. So we've replaced essentially the homepage code, which is this one, with this code. So it's exactly the same thing. Now it's readable PHP. And so if we now run this, it's going to do good because it's going to save these inside. So let's try and see how that works. So if I come back to my template part here, now that the cached file has been saved, we can run it and include it. So here, we don't need this actually. So all I need to do is now include the cache file. So I'm going to say require. maybe let's do include. Anyway, require is fine. Let's require the cached file like that. And then, because things are going to be saved inside sections here, so I just want to see what's inside sections. So here I'm going to echo some pre-tags for clarity. And then we're going to say print readable this sections. So I just want to see if my data has been saved inside sections. So there are two sections, the slider and the content, and let's see what is there. So as you can see, this is what it is. Let's see it here much better. In the So there we go. It's an array. It's got content and it's got slider. So content has a for each loop, and then slider has this thing here. So it has saved two items in the array, which is exactly what we wanted to do. Now that those two things are saved, all we need to do now is import the main include file and then add those sections where they're supposed to be added. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so there will be times when the cached file here doesn't really have an output buffer in it. And so we need to do OB start here. And because OB start is idempotent, meaning that you can have several of them start without a problem, that's not going to be an issue. And then let's do content is going to be equal to OB get clean, like that. All right, because so far the file that we've been caching here is the has got OB get clean, so which is nice and all, but not all the time are we gonna have that. So at this point we're gonna return the content. So let's say return content. Now, since the render function is going to be returning results, let's go back in the index page and echo, because we have to echo it if it's just returning the result. Okay, so echo render. Great. Otherwise, if we don't echo what's returned, it's just gonna go into the atmosphere or something. Okay, so with this now, let's just change a few things. Maybe here, let me move the caching, creation of the cache file into this part here. And then that way I can remove it from here. Let me just do this. Let me cut it out. And then here, I'll have it return the cache file. Like that. Now the reason I've done this is so I can check if it already exists. Then we don't have to go through this process right here. This process is pointless if the cache file already exists. That way we can save time and not have to parse the file again. But I'm going to add an if statement in a moment. Though here I need this cached file, so I'm going to put it like so, because we are requiring it here. So then I can remove it from there. Okay, so it's almost the same thing, just a little bit different. So this compiles the template file and returns the cached file, and then we load the cache file. Now sometimes the cache file will contain OB start and OB get clean, and that will be fine. But if it doesn't, we are putting these as redundancies in order to do the same thing. Now, if for some reason the OB get clean happens at this point of the file inside the cache file, that means it's an actual section. That's what it means, because only sections contain this code here. As you can see over there, the section has ob get clean at the end there. So in that case, it means this will be empty because we would already have cleaned the output buffer, right? So returning that will return an empty string, which is correct because sections are not really the pages. What we need now is to figure out in between here, if this is empty, then we should load in the main layout. However, we need to know what the layout is, and we can by looking at, because once we load those sections, they're extending a specific file, which is this one. So meaning that this variable, this extends, is going to contain the name of the file we need to load. So I'm going to come back here and right about here, before we return the content, I'm going to say if this is not empty, this extends like that, then it means now we can do something else. Now content can be equal to something else. It can be equal to ob clean again, like that. So we're just going to require another file here, and this one is going to be the parsed version of the template file. So we're going to do the same process again. We're going to compile. So actually, it's all like this, exactly the same. Oopsie daisy. Okay, my control key is acting up. Let me paste this. So this is going to be exactly the same thing. We're repeating ourselves. So let me just do this. And once we get to this point, we grab that. And then we do this. Should we? If not empty, this extends. Blah. Okay, I think that actually works. We'll see if it actually works. And let's see, cached file, compile, template file. Now, instead of compiling the template file, we're going to compile this one here. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Now, inside the compile, we should be able to... Yeah, that's where the problem is. Oh, I have a semicolon here. Now, the problem is so our template file is here. So I think this should be done in the other file. So let me cut this as well, right? Let me cut that. We want to make this universal. So instead of if file exists here, we're just going to look for template. Let me move this here. Now, the reason I moved it here is because we don't have a file here. I want this to still be able to run in the compile with just the template name. So which means we should create the full file name in here so that we can do the same there as well. So let's see, template file, template. So let me grab this and change it to template instead. So that all that is done here. That way even this will work as it is. But then we have a problem of template file here. So let me grab the if file exists, should not be in here either. Let me cut that. It should be over here where we are getting the file content. And then let me remove even this else part and put it just after this, like so. Okay, then let me move these guys in like so. Okay, so at least once we create the temp file, then we are doing that. So we create that, create a cache file, then if file exists, cannot find template file. Okay, I think that has improved things. Let me delete that. That way this can run as well. Okay, so whenever it says we are including a file, yeah, I think this is all good. I think it's gonna work. Let me just push these a little bit backward and let's give it a test run. Okay. Okay, looking good. Let's try and see what we will see here. So let me refresh and let's see. So syntax error, unexpected token, if on line 40 in the templates. So where is that? Line 40. Okay, so there's a missing semicolon here. Let's get back to business and refresh. Okay, so there we go. It says undefined variable template file on line 17. Where is that? Line 17. So here it should be template, this one here. So let me do that. Okay, let's try again. We may get a few more errors before we get it right. And look at that. Unfortunately, it didn't do its job. Okay, so now we have a second cache file, if you see here, and it's this one. So the reason it didn't do much here is because we are not accounting for these guys, and we should. So what I want to do in here is to change the yield to give us the content that we want, the slider and all that. So just like we did change to PHP code here, we should do the same thing here. Now, what we do with include is just render this again and then render that again. But then with yield, all we do is check inside that sections level and then check for this one. So it's not difficult. We're almost there. Let me go down here and let's do that. So now, one thing I forgot here with the regular expressions that I've just remembered now is sometimes people will use single quotes or double quotes. So what I'm going to do is put brackets around this guy and put a double quote here, like so that I'm escaping this double quote, and sometimes a single quote like that, so that both are valid. Let me put the double quote. So I'm escaping the double quote because we are using double quotes on the outside, and I don't want it to end the selection here, but there. So this extends and sections should have that. Even at the end here, we should have single and double quotes. So I'm going to do that again and do the same thing here. That way we are compatible with double or single quotes. And also the slash, wait, what's happening here? Oh my goodness, my control key is crazy. Okay, I've gone too far. Let me do this. Oops. Okay, so I don't need a slash actually before the text like that. Just like here as well. Section like that. I don't need those. So I'm going to remove those guys. Okay, great. Doing fine. Now let's account for this is extends. Let's account for yield as well. So yield. Now yield will have the same thing here, and there will be text in there. So what we are replacing yield with is what did I say we're replacing this with? We're just echoing. Let's echo this sections and then whatever the value is in there. So let me just do that and that. Now sometimes this won't exist, so let's put those double quotes and then like that and then semicolon, so that in case that section does not exist, we just echo empty strings like that. As simple as that with yield. So let's see, once we've added yield, what we get. So I'm going to refresh, and as you can see, we've gotten something Let me refresh from here so that I see what's happening. Okay, so there we go. So as you can see, instead of that yield thing, we have this here with a blue color. I don't know why. Oh, there's a missing R there. Sorry about that, guys. So let me go back to that template. Let me close these temp files. But we can check in the temp file, and you see this is what we've done with yield. Wherever there was yield, we're echoing a particular section inside. This one is the slider. This one we're echoing content, and here we're echoing sidebar. And then in case it does not exist, we're echoing an empty string just in case. So this is what we've replaced. The only thing remaining is the includes, these two, and then this echo in here. So let me close that, and let's look at the main layout template. It just doesn't have a background color. Where is that text? Actually, it's in the home TPL. So it should be here, background, like that. Okay. So if I refresh, this is what we see. So we're replacing this with a slider and something else. Now, if I go to another page, for example, I put question mark page is equal to blog. As you can see, this is now the blog. It's got different content to the home page. If I go back to the home page, this is what I have. But let's finish up with the include on the partial header here and the partial footer. Then we can call it a day. So down here on the includes, just like with yield, I'm going to duplicate this, and this one will include, right? Let's go to the main. Yes, include, that's what it is. The search is pretty much the same with include. The only thing is we echo what we render. So here we're just going to render that as well. Just run it the same way. This one does not require these. So what it requires, because this is an array, oh, sorry, this is a function, it requires actual brackets like that. And without the quotes, oh yeah, with the quotes, sorry about that. Okay, so let's try that just by adding that. If I refresh, now you see we get the home menu and the all rights reserved at the bottom. So I can move between pages just by clicking there now, because my header is universal at this point. Very cool, isn't it? Now let's change the page title and the actual title in the bar here. So we're going to do that by asking it to find these brackets. So let's see what kind of regex we can create. So I'm going to do Control F for find, and then I will do curly braces as special. So I'm going to use a slash for this one and another slash, so to find two, and then /s for space, and then sometimes there will be a space between there and sometimes there won't be. So I'm going to say use the star to say if there's a space of any number, right? 0 to whatever infinite value. And then let's just grab what's inside here in the text. I could put a question mark so it's not so greedy, but maybe let me just do a space of any amount, and then what other symbol am I putting here? The closing curly brace. Yeah, right there, that makes it greedy. Let me put a question mark, and then it's not so greedy, right? Okay, so let's do that so it doesn't go all the way. Actually, I think I should put question marks on all of those. Let me copy this. Oops, what have I done? Copy that. So that works for me. Let me go back to template. So within these, I'll put question marks so that it doesn't collect large amounts of this. So let me just do this, make it less greedy. I'll put a question mark there on the regex. So what I want is now the what do I want to add? Changing the text, right? The variables. So on this one, what do I do? I'm just going to duplicate this and then paste my pattern here. And then that will simply be replaced by echo. And then we're going to use HTML entities here. So I'm going to say HTML special chars, and then we put our value in there, our variable, right? And we should echo this though. So I'm just going to do echo like that. Okay. So with that, we have variables done. So let me come back here and refresh the page. Oh no. So HTML unquote error. Argument 1 must be string of type string. Array was given. Okay. So look at this here. It's telling me there's an error in this file. Now, in a later video, you can let me know, you guys, in the comment section if you want me to help you with make it error, to improve this with error handling that will show the actual file instead of these cached files. So let's look at this line 16. What is it saying? It's string was given argument line 16. So this one with a 47 cache. So let's go there. And 16, where is 16? This one right here. HTML special chars. So it changed it to this, and then image. Oh, image was is an array. Okay, so that's a fault that I have here, I guess, the way I created it. Image. This is images, like that. That's what it's supposed to be. Let me close that. Yeah, images. Okay, let me see if that sorts the problem out. Okay, that does it. So as you can see here, blog is the title. Let's go here. Let's go back to the home page. So that's home, and this is blog. So it's working as intended, except for the for each loop. Now the for each as well is going to be the same way. There's for each, end for each, and then there's if, there's end else, end if, and so on. So we can just keep adding these things here. At this point, this is where we've reached. So let me duplicate one that has something more likely, like no, actually none of these have what I want. But let's do the for each. And then there's end for each. Okay, so for each and then end for each. Now the for each loop doesn't have, we can just go here and make that, where is this? Home. Let's make our regex at for each. It's better when you're looking at stuff like this. Now you could put a space here if you want, 0 or none, and then let's do a slash like that, and then of course let's gather our content within there, question mark, and then we close the bracket like so. Okay, great, looking good. Now let me grab this for each part. This is our pattern and paste it here. Boom. So this one we just replace with for each. This one we replace with end for each. Like that, with a semicolon. And then this other one here we replace with a proper for each loop. So we're going to do for each, And then within there, we put whatever we gathered, and then full colon, and then the closing PHP tags like that. Okay, so with that, we should get a list here instead. And there we go. So you see, there's the list, and there's the list here for images. Okay, so if I go to the home page here, this is how the home page looks like. It doesn't have a sidebar content, but it has this main content here, and then there we go on the blog. So this is a kind of a templating thing that's very simple. Let's do a real world example, but before that, let me optimize this a little bit. Let me go back here. Now at the moment, every file is being parsed. Okay, it's being parsed, but we don't need that. Let me open the cache folder here. Now you can create logic to delete cached files and all that over time. Yeah, let me close that. But what I really want here is to check if the cached file already exists with that MD5 thingy here. So what I'm going to do is that if file exists, so if that file already exists, then we don't do anything. Now in order to do that, we have to negate this. So currently this will run if the file exists, but we want if the file does not exist, we run it. Okay, great. So now this will create one more problem, but let's see. If I refresh and these are working as intended, right? But now, so I have all these files, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 files. Okay, so there's the footer, there's the header, there's the okay, so all of them are accounted for. Yeah, that makes sense. So all those are the files. But the problem now is if I edit something, like for example, on the blog, let's say it's post title, but I write post blog or blog post title, right? Because this is a different page. And then here I guess I write blog image and save that. I'm not going to see that because the cache file already exists, and if I go to blog, I won't see that, right? Instead of post title, it should be blog post title, but I don't see it. Now, so what we need to do is to compare when the file was created, because the template file should be, if the template file is much newer than the cache file, then we should replace the cache file. That's what we should do. We just check which one is newer than the other. So we do that by looking at the date modified. So we can do here, if the file does not exist, or, right, or we put something in here. We say there's a function called file mtime, which just gives you the Unix timestamp, which is an integer of how many seconds have passed since 1970 to when the file was modified, right? I don't know why it's 1970, but yeah, that's when they started counting. So file mtime of the cached file, if that is greater, whatever is greater is newer. So we should do things if I get confused with this greater than or less than. Let me just put whatever sign for now, and then I'll think about it a bit later. So template file. So these two. Now, if the template file's mtime is greater, oh yeah, which is the correct, then we run this. So at this point, if I try to run this, it's going to edit, as you can see now. It's giving me a new one. However, it's no longer parsing now that things are like that, because I can do echo here parsed, just to see if we see the parsed there. So I'm going to go back and let's refresh. So we don't see it, right? But if I edit one of these templates, like the blog one, and save, I'm going to see the text parsed, as you see there. But if I now refresh, it's gone. So it only parses when it needs to. So that's good. Let me remove that. All right, so far so good. Our templating system is pretty much done. So now you can add even more stuff here. Like for example, the way this is, I can add the PHP because Laravel does have that. So let me edit the for each here and put PHP instead. So you can put PHP and PHP to put actual PHP there. So in this situation, we don't even need these here, just the PHP itself. If we have the @PHP, then over here it just means we open PHP tags like that. So I'm going to do that, but I'll leave a space like so, just in case. And then this one, end PHP, just gives us the closing PHP tag, and I'll put a space there as well. Just like that. So now this means I can add those to my, let's say for example, in the home template, right? If in the home template I want the title, not even just the title, how do I display the validity of this? Let me go to the header. So right here in the header, there's a home here, right? I could add some other text here. Let's say page. Or where are we doing page? We are already doing that in the header somewhere, right? Or in the main layout, yes. So there's page right here, right? So what I could do is do this. Let's say PHP and then add end PHP. And then here I can change what page is. Page is equal to, so now in here I can put any PHP code that I want. So I can say testing 1 2. That way the page name will always be testing 1 2, because once we change it from there, it's going to change here. So let me come back here and let's see that. And you see it's testing 1 2, testing 1 2. There you go. So that's how you can put even PHP. So you can go ahead and put whatever you want to be part of the template here. This is completely up to you. So you can just go ahead and either copy what Blade has for Laravel and just make everything. All you need to do is just adjust this parsing part and just figure out what kind of text you need to replace it with to make it valid PHP. And that's all really. Alrighty guys, so hopefully you have learned something here and you can get this and give it a test. Alright, so let me clean this up a little bit here. I'm gonna go to main layout here and let me put this inside a larger div, the whole thing. Let me move this here and put some styles. I'm gonna say max width, it's gonna be 1000 pixels, and then margin left auto, and then margin right auto. Okay, so let's see that it looks somewhat of a better page like that. Okay, let me maybe even put a box shadow, 0 pixel, 0 pixel, 10 pixel, and then 0 0 0 0 0 0 2 2. Very light shadow. Okay, so let me refresh, and there it is. Maybe I was better off with a border. So let me add some padding, 10 pixels, border, solid, thin, gray. All right, so let's see that. Okay, so this is our page. That way it's much more clear. And this is the home page. This is the blog page. Back to the home page, back to the blog page. So hopefully you can see the power in this. Let me go to the footer as well. Just a quick one here. Let's do style, text align, center. All right, let's see that. Okay, that's much better. Maybe we do the same for the title in the template. Let's go here. No, the page name here. So let's do a styling here, and text align, center. All right, and then maybe the font family to Tahoma, just something nicer than the default. All right, so if I refresh, there it is. So we have our blog. Same thing with the header. I want to text align center, so let's do that as well. Style, text align center. Okay. All right, so there is our website. If I click here, it goes to the home page, which has different content, as you can see, and blog, which has different content, as you can see as well. So all this is what you can do. I can have more pages here, of course, you know that. So those are the basics of templating. Now, of course, we could do more, but let me know if you like things like this. Then maybe we can improve it, especially with error handling. And I'll see you guys in the next video.